we don't want a big shadow, just a little one like that. If it's later in the day, it's more elliptical and it's longer. So there, a little shadow will work. And that's pencil. So I used a pencil, and the reason being is I can play around with it. So what I want to do here for the shadow is just make some light lines like this first. Just some little light lines. Very feathery on the edge. Then you can erase that little pencil thing. So when you're doing a pen and ink and you feel a little bit, you want to be a little safer, it's okay to use a pencil and then erase it. Okay, now I'm adding the little strokes at the base of the shadow. The base of the shadow is always the darkest. Now an interesting thing about shadows is if you have a blue object, you'll probably get a little orange reflected up into the blue and a little bit of blue reflected into here. So there's a little bit of play in shadows, a little bit of fun. All you have to do is study them, sort of squint your eye and look at one. Okay, there's my little shadow. I might make it a little bit closer to the edge here, darken this up a bit. See, little strokes, just little strokes with a very fine pen, nothing bold yet. And now I'm going to switch to a mechanical pen. It's a little different. This is called Le Pen. Rapidograph used to make them. So there's lots of good mechanical pens on. I'm dotting. Dot, dot, dot. Okay, why am I doing all this work? Well, it seems tedious, but it forces me to stick at something until it's done. Okay? One of the myths in art that we're dealing with is, oh, it's hard. It's not hard. It becomes a little tedious sometimes. We want something immediate right away. Okay, there's a good start. And now I'm going to fill in the back with bigger. This is the wrist stroke again. And I'm going to get it very dark next to the ball. I don't think I'll keep the paper this big. I might even make it smaller like this. I'm feeling like maybe I don't want to spend all day doing too much, so I'm going to leave a little bit extra here. I might even make another picture out of the other side. Okay, so here we go. See that stroke? Little trick with your finger. Put your finger out and hit the finger. See, it's lighter on this side. Darker here, light and dark. Now I'm off to the races. I did the hard part first, which was the shape. Shapes are usually harder than little areas. Like this is an area behind it. It's fairly straightforward. Now this is where it's going to get darker against the ball. So now I'm going to go this way and this way. Ball, whatever it is, round shape. I'm going to start cross-hatching and I keep getting it darker and darker, but fanning it out this way, lighter. Okay, now what I'm going to bear right down in here now, you might even think your pen isn't working sometimes, but keep an eye on the edge of the ball here. See, the edge of the ball. You can even follow the contour like with the same shape, and away we go. Just keep throwing in dark against it. You'll see in the other project where I demonstrate how I did a black ink drawing down by the river, and then I show you how I fill it in with paint, just like we're doing here. You can take this technique as far as you want. You can make things totally realistic using this technique. Notice how I'm bringing the edges together. See, little dots? I'm looking at dark and light. I like this little design. I didn't do it in this one. And I left this up a little higher. That's okay. Perhaps it might be a little out, but I'm making it up. It's not like I have a ball in front of me or a photograph and I'm copying. You don't want to copy, you want to express. Now you can turn your paper if you want, but I want to lose it here. It's not graded enough, so I just keep going over it. Now I'm going back and forth like this, really bearing down with the pen. I'm filling in everything. There we go, and I'm getting rid of that little halo that was there. And away we go, right across. Good. These are just pulling things across. See? Pulling the stroke, pulling on the same angle. This will give you a nice perspective. Don't vary the angles. The angle's always like that, right across. You're not going one way and one another yet. So there we go, right into the bottom. Right on. Now see that's light? I'm going to make this a little darker here. I'm going to add a little more in that corner. Always balancing dark and light, dark and light, dark and light. Darker. See the little dots? I can fill it right in. Make it a little rounder, put some little round strokes in, see? Whatever you want to do. Just keep adding strokes. I might go a little darker down here too. Okay. So, you know, that's good enough for now. I think that's just fine. Put a little texture on here. I like texture. There we go. Gradation means gradual. Contrast is when it's right up against dark light. But graded is gradual. And that's what we're going to do next. Put some little washes in here. Hey, you see, it doesn't really matter if that line was straight. It's actually better on an angle because angles are more interesting. See, I can add a little texture through here. There. Next, let's get some paint ready. Use these simple paints here. You can also have something like this. And you can squeeze out a few colors. But for a simple wash, I take some water. This is where the moppy brush comes in. Get some water here. Put it in here. Let's do a wash with two things. A primary color, red, yellow, or blue, and what we call a neutral color. Now a neutral color is like a tan. You take a little red. I'm taking a little cadmium red. I like cadmium red. You don't need much. There you go. See that? Little cadmium red. Clean the brush off. Wipe it on a rag. Take a little blue. Mix it in. We're getting a neutral color. A neutral color is a mixture of red, yellow, and blue. Very simple. Red, yellow, and blue. Gives you a neutral color. That's neutral. Brown's a perfect example of a neutral color. Okay, so I'm going to leave the white here, but I'm going to put the brown all over the background, not the shadow, a little bit in the shadow. And there's a wash. Notice the ink has stayed and not moved. And I've left a little white here and a little white here. Perfect. Anyone can do that. Next, there we go. Let's select a color, an actual color for the ball. You can select anything. I'm going to take red. It's a bit thicker. It's cadmium. So I put cadmium everywhere on the dark spot. And then I clean my brush off and I soften around the edges, but leave a little bit of that pure white. See? Do I put a little cadmium in the shadow? Not yet. What I do first is take the opposite color, and the opposite color is green. So taking a little green, checking to see it's not too thick. There we go. Put a little green into the shadow first. If you want vibrant shadows, use the opposite color. Now, if you don't know what opposite colors are, look it up. Do a little studying, find out. Now, I like that green, so I'm going to now, because it's the opposite of red, I'm going to take a little more. of the green, and I'm going to put it into the neutral color. Take a little more of the red. Of course, green is just brown, blue and yellow. So I can take a few of these colors, get a darker color for the background. I'm adding some phthalo blue to it, and I think a little more of the green. I wanted cool colors. Technique. What are the cool colors? Well, if they look cool to you, they're cool. If you think red is cool, fine. Then blue will be a warm color. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's the temperature of the color. And the temperature of green is usually cool if it doesn't have much yellow in it. And now if you have a lot of yellow, notice how I'm tapping this in. Now I want to be careful that I don't go too close so that it bleeds into the little round shape. Now as I come over here, because this is cool, I have a little thing in me that tells me what to do sometimes. I don't know what you want to call it. Let's call it the muse. That friendly little voice that helps us, not the one that criticizes us. The one that gets us out of bed in the morning maybe, but not the one that says go to bed because there's nothing to do. So be careful with who you listen to. So there I've added some yellow, and I'm going to make them mix in a bit, see? A mottled effect is when it's not quite perfect. It's like mottled. I'll put a little dark in there. Just drop it in. A little bit more red on the ball, or whatever it is. This time it's a little thicker, see? But not so thick that you don't touch it to the rag, so it doesn't drip, and just tap it at the bottom. The beautiful thing about cadmium is it sits on top. You don't want to wash color over this later. You want to let the cadmium dry. Just tap it, but don't touch that green. Get away from there. And here's where I put a little bit of the red in the shadow, just a touch, just a drop, and then lick it up. And one more touch of green. There we go. It's looking pretty good. I'll put a little bit more up here on an angle. I like the angle. You see the red going up in here? That sort of complements right there. And there we go. That's a good start. I'm going to let that dry, and we'll look at it when it's dry. And put a little more green on the table here. Notice the white, I haven't touched it yet. So I'm stroking in some red, brown, and the green. I've used all three colors, but primarily I've used red and just a little bit of the yellow here. I'm kind of liking this. I'm going to darken in the corner here, just mottle it a bit, see? It'll dry lighter. There, and I might put one more juicy dark, just one juicy dark right there with pure phthalo and a little bit of alizarin crimson. Why I like alizarin crimson is because it's clear and pure, and it makes a great violet. Violet is purple. So tap that in. The violet is absolutely a perfect foil for the green. Let me do a little trick here. Let me just bring it over, see? I'm going to tilt the board a little bit, watch. You know, water does run downhill, so if I tilt this board a bit, it's going to run. And I'll put something underneath it while it dries. Got the drips, there we go. Let it dry.